Believe it or not, I'm actually outside. You can't tell it, but I'm actually outside. This canopy I'm in is a canopy that I put up a few years back. And this bench is about as long as we've been here. So it's over, 7 years old. It's a cinder block bench, as you can see, and I built it with Zeta's help. Zeta was tiny at the time. I think she was like a year old. Anyway, now what this video is about. This video is actually about Tacoma in downtown, and someone was talking about in a message I got about the vitality of downtown and all the different things, and that the future is going to be great and it holds the most promise. I agreed with all those things except for the one that says it holds the most promise. And here is the reason why I kind of disagree with that. I think downtown is a pretty vital entity. If you look at downtown Tacoma and if you look at cities much bigger than it, we're not doing half bad. I mean, if you compare it to something like a Seattle, of course, it's going to look tiny and not as robust and vibrant. But if you look at cities like Albuquerque, which is much bigger than Tacoma, if you look at even the Colossus, Houston, its downtown area, the retail component of it, it's not as vibrant, right? They have more offices, more office buildings, more workers down there. But when you look at the overall vitality of the city, it's not quite what you would think. Again, it's got a lot of heavyweights down there, but it's not as vibrant as what it could be. And when you're looking at Tacoma, for example, it's doing fairly well in all those different metrics, and it is putting more people into downtown to live, which will create a much more vibrant overall core. There's another city. Let me look and see real quick while I'm doing that to see what the other city is that I was using as an example. Hold on. Is it here? Detroit. People compare Tacoma to Detroit all the time as if it's some sort of a dig or a negative, but to be honest with you, it's not. Detroit has done a lot of great things in the past to kind of recover, and it is similar to Tacoma in many respects, some would argue, but I would say it is similar in terms of its downtown vitality and what they're trying to do. Historically, it's been a city that's been focused on automobiles, and really you can look at all three of those cities, Detroit, Albuquerque, and Houston, as being core automobile cities. But Detroit's trying to change that and bring more retail and more vibrancy downtown. And really, if you look at two of those cities, Detroit and Houston, they have a lot of pro sports teams which can help them out. Albuquerque is just on a plateau and has been that way for decades. Tacoma's on the rise. But even downtown Tacoma, while it's great and it's doing a lot of great things and it holds a lot of promise, I think actually the Dome District holds the biggest promise. And here is the reason why. The Dome District is about a quarter of a mile, square mile, right? So a quarter of a square mile, not a big area, right? Not a big area. And that is something that is good. It is mostly flat, which is also a great thing as well. If you look at downtown Tacoma, it's very hilly, the downtown core. It's very hilly, not flat, none of those types of things. So walking in the Dome District is by far easier for people who have mobility issues or people who just don't want to hike up the hills. It makes things a lot easier. Also, it makes things a lot more easier for developers as they're building and developing. When you have hills and inclines and things like that, you have to incorporate all that stuff into your development. So it can make projects a little more expensive than if it's on a flat surface. So the Dome District has a lot of flat area, and it has a lot of available land that you don't see in downtown Tacoma. Even though it is literally just right next door, there's a major difference once you actually go over into the Dome District. So you have this smaller, more compact area, and you have a flat, relatively flat area for good mobility to bicycle, move around, and to walk. So the walkability there is probably a lot easier than in other parts of downtown. Hilltop's another area where walkability is really good. And again, it's more flat than, say, the downtown core. The other part that really makes the Dome District really interesting is it has a lot of the things that it needs to really excel, right? My color is going to go in and out because it's a cloudy day, so you're going to see some shade and some brightness as the sun peeks through the clouds. Um, but at any rate, downtown has a lot of the big buildings, and it has all the co-working spaces and all the offices and all the other things. That's great, but the Dome District is more of a residential community once everything gets finished and complete. And so that means you're going to have more people there at night, and in the morning versus in other parts of the city. So you have, or other parts of downtown, I should say. So you don't have that big daytime crowd and then it leaves. It really has more residential projects popping up all the time. I've mentioned them, right? Some has been done by just new developers to the area. Some have been by developers that have been in the city for quite some time. And it started off with Coes. And they put their building right there in the Dome District, and that started the project. Before, the number of people who lived in the Dome District, and it's a pretty small area that they're classifying. They're not talking farther out on Puyallup and over by the large truck gas station area, not that. They're talking more or less basically where the bus line stops, or where the bus hub is. So that bus hub all the way up to Pack Avenue is basically what they're considering the Dome District, right? And then it goes up to where the U.S. Bank is right there on Pack Avenue, that general area as well, all the way up to 705. So it's just basically a very well-defined area. When you look at that area, only 25 people lived in the Dome District, according to city records. And most of those were in the old Merkel Hotel, which has now been converted to Tacoma Flats. The developer of that kind of kicked all those people out who were close to homelessness. They ended up being homeless after that, and it was a bad thing. A lot of those people perished because of just life on the street is rough. Since then, that development has brought in people to live there that can pay the rents. And I'm not quite sure of the number of apartments, but we'll look into that and see what the actual apartment number is. But that kind of was the first start of it. When you look at what Coes has done, they added in well over 100 units. So the population has went way above and beyond 12. It has more than quadrupled, if not more so than that since then, right? And so that's kind of the first start of it. The second start of this was Trax. It is stalled, but Trax was going to add another 100 and something units to it, basically, let's say 200 more people, and that's kind of has stalled out. The other project has actually been by Bode, and they're building 2 apartment projects there in the Dome District, and one is pretty much almost complete. The outside of that building is done. They're working more on the inside. That's going to add over 100 units as well. And then they're going to put another project really the block over that's going to add even more units than the one that they're constructing right now. There are talks of building another project that is kind of on the outskirts of downtown, kind of not technically the Dome District, but you can kind of argue that it is, but it's kind of in an area where it's more residential, and that will be developed. Keep in mind, back in the day, the Dome District, where the Dome is sitting, was the Hawthorne neighborhood, full of houses. That was all knocked down, and you have the Dome today. And the city has been wanting to really develop this area, and they had this whole master plan of what could happen, and it really has not happened in that fashion. Instead, you're having more of an organic urban village that is slowly starting to develop into that urban village, right? Energize Tacoma is my organization, and we're working on how to really advocate for more services, more art projects, more parks, and more different things into the Dome District, especially given its walkability. The big thing about the Dome District, and the reason why I think it has a lot of potential too, is because it has the state's largest concentration of transit options, and they keep growing. So not only is Greyhound over there, the city's bus service is over there, interstate bus travel is over there as well, beyond just Greyhound. You have buses from Sound Transit that go there. You have buses that are from Olympia that go there. You have all those things. The BRT line, which eventually will happen, but right now we have enhanced bus service that goes there. Moving over, you have the Tacoma Link Light Rail, which goes through downtown. It connects there. You have 2 giant parking garages, which are there. You have the Sounder commuter train, which is in Freight House Square, where my pottery studio, the Painting Panda Pottery Studio, is at. And that takes you all the way up to Seattle, and it takes you now to South Tacoma as well, eventually to DuPont. Outside of that, you have Amtrak. 2 different Amtrak lines are right there as well. And so when you look at all of this, it is the densest population hub in the entire state of Washington, more so than even Seattle. And to round that out, the Link light rail system, the big one, the one that you see up in Seattle, that's all in the subway system, that will eventually come down to Tacoma. And you guessed it, it's going to be right there in the Dome District. We don't know exactly where. It could take over Freight House Square. It could be in other locations. But it makes the most sense, really, to be right there at Freight House Square. And if they were to replace that, tear down all of Freight House Square except for a small portion, they should redesign it, redevelop it, and have it for shops and stores and eateries that are already there. It's a great opportunity if you think about it, because you already have a food hall, if you will, that exists, and these businesses do very, very well. Those businesses, coupled with some of the other retail that might make sense, could create a great urban shopping environment that is very much needed. And I think if we have a better setup, better access to this and more modern facilities, it could really bring and brighten up that neighborhood. Which is desperately needed. The Dome District also has a lot of potential because of its past history and kind of where it's at. It's more of a gritty area. If you talk to other people in the city, sometimes they have a negative view of it. Some of the business folks have more of a negative view of the Dome District. But to be honest with you, it is the one area that I think has the greatest propensity to grow faster, and where you're going to see a lot more pedestrian travel within that area. The city is thinking about putting a skate park right in that general area as well. We're all for it because it cures a lot of different issues, and it's something that's desperately needed. But also, when you look at the totality of all the things that will come, these residential buildings will bring retail as well. I mentioned Bode, but also let's not forget there's another large apartment building that will go up eventually in one of those areas. Also, I don't know the name, and I've been trying to find it. I did see before the structures that were there, they had some old warehouses, and there was a panel that had the name of the building and the size and all that. That building was part of an arson issue. And so it burned all that down, and it took the sign with it. So I can't remember what that building was. I do distinctly remember taking a photo of what the building would look like, but I haven't been able to find that photo. But it is a large apartment building. So you have that. But also, let's not forget Great Expectations. That developer is putting in Cornice House, which some would argue technically is either inside of the Dome District. Some would argue it's inside of the Brewery District. Some will say it is on the border of both. Either way, that is right there on the corner of 25th and Pack. That developer's also putting in Artibus House, which is going to be directly in the Dome District. You add all of this together and you can kind of see the amount of vitality that's going to be there. Both projects will have retail. We don't know exactly how much is going to be in Artibus, but we know that about 3 spaces are going to be in Cornice House. When you look at all this new retail that will be available, more than likely, given all of the things I mentioned, you're going to have a lot of retail space open up and a lot of folks be interested in those spaces, again, because of the future development of Sound Transit. Sound Transit, when they put in one of these link hubs, it generates a lot of traffic. A lot of people are able to come and go pretty quickly, and that foot traffic is dynamic. In addition, organizations like myself also play a role in keeping these neighborhoods even more vital and vibrant. So we're hoping to actually put a spotlight on this area. One, our headquarters is based there. Two, our pottery studio is based there. And it was the first place that we actually had our art installation put in. So we want to make sure that we definitely keep this community vibrant. It already has a small and growing arts community. There's a Spun, which is there. It's a pottery studio. We know them very well. A glass blowing studio, at least one is over in that area as well. So the Dome District has a lot, and an art gallery inside of Freight House Square. So it has a lot of different aspects when it comes to art currently. And so we want to continue to brighten that and shine that and add more to the area. So from that standpoint, when you look at all the different buildings that will be coming in, that's already signed to say they're coming in, you can kind of see where I'm talking about that this is going to be a very vibrant community. One is another project, and I think it's called Mount Terrace. I can't remember. It is a colossal building. That building is going to go right there where the Johnny Foods is. They're going to tear all that down, including where the New Frontier is. And what I was told before and what I've read is that New Frontier is not going away. They'll be a part of the retail component of that space, which makes a lot of sense because you got to have that space. And I think it's great for New Frontier as they're bringing in all types of different types of events that go on there. There's burlesque shows that go on. There's small concerts that go on. It's an institution, right? When you think of it that way, the Dome District already has its key signature pieces. What is it missing? It's missing coffee shops. It has some places for you to go and get beer and breweries and things like that. It has restaurants. It has all those things, but it is missing things as basic as a coffee shop, right? It's missing things as basic as a park. There are areas where you can do that. Some make better sense than others, but it needs those types of things to really elevate itself to the position that it needs to be. So I think that over time, you're going to see that the Dome District really holds a tremendous amount of promise. The land over there is a lot more affordable than downtown. There's a lot of opportunities. The Puyallup Tribe of Indians has taken notice of this. They've put in a facility over there. There's another indigenous government that also has put in offices over there or bought an office building. So they understand the direction of that neighborhood. Otherwise, they would not be investing in it. They're doing a lot of great things. So I see the Dome District as being that one small area, a part of the greater downtown regional growth center of Tacoma, but one of those areas that probably will be the most walkable and probably the most densely packed area once everything is said and done. Probably have a higher density than any other part of the city once they finish everything, and that's something considerable. Again, it's a small area, so a quarter of a square mile is not very big. You can walk the whole area, which kind of adds to that appeal. If you're bicycling the area, you can kind of bicycle that whole area, walk the area, run the area, and it provides a lot for someone. They wouldn't have to really leave this area. The other thing it's missing, and I would not hold your breath, is a grocery store. That's something downtown needs. We have one over there in Stadium District, Stadium Thriftway, but having a grocery store there I think would really enhance that quite a bit. Otherwise, you're relying on convenience stores and things like that. But I think it also holds true that if Sound Transit comes through and build what they're going to build, hopefully it will have a retail component which will entice a convenience store or grocery store to locate there. Freight House Square did have for many years a convenience store. Once that owner died, they never replaced that convenience store. So we'll see. Hopefully the tracks building will be completed. That area will have a large amount of retail once that project is done. So when you look at it pound for pound, this area holds a tremendous amount of potential that I think a lot of people aren't quite aware of. And even though people may have a business right there in downtown, very few venture over to the Dome District to see all of what's going on, all that's going to happen. but I do think it holds the biggest amount of promise. Tell me what your thoughts are. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, I will see you. Take care.